Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I am Steve Smith. So, what happens when all this idiocy comes out to the suburbs? All this violence, these riots, these petulant little people with all sorts of things. Let's see, I think you're too close to me. There we go. With all sorts of things that they think they need to complain about. That's a question a lot of people are asking. A lot of people have asked me that. I have some opinions on that I think differ from others. Doesn't mean they're wrong. It means that we might be seeing things from a different perspective. Um, I told the story, or maybe first I'll make a short recap again of my history and my experience and why I think about this. I grew up in both in all three: the city, the more dangerous part of the city, the working class suburb, and then a much nicer circle of suburb until I turned 21. Wanted to be a cop, went back to the city, to the high crime area of the city. We used to call it the ghetto, they call it the hood now. That seems to be spreading all over the place, but back in my day, it was fairly centralized and fairly active, fairly intense. It wasn't many years after the riots of 1968, and so uh, tempers were still flaring. Flashpoints were still easy to find, and it was extremely active. Learned a lot on that. I did a number of years in uniform there, and then I did a number of years undercover, quite a few. So I saw the the uh, the situation from both the outside as a police officer and the inside as a so-called bad guy, right? So I came to understand it very, very well. And then when I left law enforcement, I stayed in the city for a number of years doing private things. And so I understand it. Then I came back out when I decided that I didn't want to hear sirens every night. I came out to the suburbs to have a family and kids and live a nice, relaxed life. And for the most part, that's what it's been. It's changing a little bit here in the last few years, but it still remains a nice place to live. That kind of brings up a couple of questions before I get into the main issue of what's going to happen when these idiots try to come out here. And that is, I've had people ask me, how come you still live in the suburbs? That's a good question. I don't know whether I'll get into that on this one or not. Depends on how long this one runs. But if I don't, I will definitely come back and address it in a later one. And another good question: what is my tripwire for bugging out? When do I get out of here? That's another good question. I have answers for both of those, and I'll be happy to share them to an extent. Um, whether we'll get to that in this, I don't know. Okay, so back to this. I told y'all some time ago um, about when one of these groups came out to our area here after we've heard threats and chest thumping and yelling and screaming. After we're done in the cities, we're coming for you. For you people out there in the suburbs, you soft little yellow-bellied soft people that can't fight back and don't know what you're doing and probably got all of everything you were given, on a silver platter, and you all don't know how to work, and you're stupid, and hey, yeah, I've heard it all. Interesting. Those opinions come from people that haven't a clue. And so let me give some clues here. I told the story about one of those groups that came out here thinking they were going to raise Cain like they've been allowed to in the cities, and and as soon as they got off the track that our police department had told them they needed to stay on, things went south fast for them. They started going out into a residential neighborhood. Guess what? People called 911, and before more police got there, the citizens themselves, the residents, these soft little suburbanites, they came out of their houses and they started giving these people what? and telling them to get out of their neighborhood. They don't need that around here. We come out here to live nice and quiet, and we don't need your idiocy and not going to stand for it. So these people, of course, thought that they were going to back these suburbanites down, and started using the bullhorns and screaming their slogans and all of that. And the next wave of the police came and chatted with them for just a moment. Told them they had to get back on the sidewalks, and when they didn't do that, the leader found himself face planted on the asphalt with his hands behind his back, and handcuffs being applied. And when his wife thought that she'd get up there, his wife was a lawyer, so she thought she knew everything. And she got up in there, was going to come to the defense of this, and she just figured that she'd back these people up, but she ended up going to jail too. Guess how many demonstrations we've had since then that got out of hand? We got a few people that stand out on the street corners with their little homemade signs, but guess how many have caused a ruckus? 0 would be close. If you guessed that, you were right. Did you see what happened out in Colorado Springs? Okay. Another group, they're going to bring it out to the suburbanites, right? Bring it out to the suburbs where these people are soft and don't know what they're doing. And I'm not sure. It seems like, it's been a couple of days since I read it. It seems like it might have been a back the badge or a pro-police rally to begin with, and these Antifas showed up. Maybe I'll just start calling them ants, because that's kind of what they remind me of, just little ants just running all around. So the ants came out and started, with their slogans, and they're yelling at the people, and I don't even know what they're yelling. You're bad, and yelling at them and using their and shouting their slogans and all that. And some of these folks who were there at the police rally took these people to a ditch and started whooping their butts. It was interesting to watch. As soon as some pushback was applied to these people, one of the first things, it's on, you can find it, just Google Colorado Springs, whatever. And one of the funniest things was that as soon as these suburbanites took these boys to the ditch, you hear this girl who was obviously one of the ants. Oh my gosh, that's not what she said, but I won't say what she said. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. See, the idea that they would even have pushback on them was so shocking to her. So she couldn't believe it. And now she was no longer screaming slogans and raising a fist and power to the people and all this. She was, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Interesting how these people act when all of a sudden a little reality is applied. Anyway, these boys took these ants down into the ditch and just started waxing their butts a little bit. Not too hard. And I got to say a couple of things. These ants were lucky that these boys didn't know how to fight. But these boys were taking it to them, and they were delivering some force. But if they'd known how to punch, these ants wouldn't even gotten out of the ditch. One of these little ants crawled up, and he was standing there for a minute in his little black outfit and looking around, and then he saw apparently a plastic water bottle laying on the ground, and I doubt that it was still frozen at these temperatures. Probably just we'd been carrying it around to drink from. So he picked up this water bottle, and he used it to hit one of these suburbanites, one of these big old burly guys. Now, that's another thing. The guys, get out there and do a little training, will you? I mean, lose a few pounds, because you're not moving like you want to. You are not moving like you need to if you really need to do it. If you come up against a real enemy instead of these ants, you're going to need a little bit more speed and a little bit more agility and a little bit more, So love what you did, but hey, have a salad every now and then. Lift some weights, run around the block, and get out there and get yourself in shape, because it might be coming that you need to be in fighting shape. So that's what I commend your spirit. I commend your actions, but get back the way you were 20 years ago, before you started eating so well. Okay, so back to this. And I say that in brotherly love. So back to this. So this little ant finds a water bottle laying on there, and he just stands there for a minute, and then he hits this guy on the shoulder or something. I mean, it was I would say it was a second grade hit, but I know second graders that hit harder than that and better than that. And this guy came up at this kid, and another guy grabbed him around his neck, and they took him down. And it was, if you didn't know that it was real, you would have thought it was a comedy. Look, this is what's going to happen when some of these idiots try to come out into the suburbs. Now, I will say this. I know that not all suburbs are the same. Okay. I would venture to guess that the suburbs of Portland and Seattle might act a little bit differently. But all over this country are suburbs full of people that know what they're doing. Okay? They moved out of the cities because they were tired of dealing with the socialist idiocy that was creating more problems coming in the cities. They wanted out of that. But they're still, people are social animals. Not everybody wanted to move out into the country. I don't think moving out into the country is a bad idea. I think it's great. I've never lived for a long time out in the country, and I depending on how far out we're talking about it, I don't necessarily think that it's for me at this time, but it is for some. And if it's for you, get out there. Get out there now. But these are people, as I've said before, who are not stupid people. Okay, they moved out of the cities to live a nicer life. That's why people live in the suburbs. That doesn't mean that they're soft, and it doesn't mean that they're stupid, and it doesn't mean that they won't stand up when they're pushed to stand up. I know a lot of people in the city, I know a lot of people in the suburbs, and I know a lot of people in the country. And I will say that there's still some tough ones left in the city, but most of those have moved to the suburbs. There are, tough ones out in the country, but there's simply more in the suburbs because there's more people. Okay, they're not spread out. I live in a very nice area here. I know my neighbors. I know all of my neighbors. We live in an area that anybody can come over and borrow a lawnmower, a chainsaw, my circular saw, or I will borrow theirs, or they borrow my ladders. We talk, we walk, we see each other on the trails. This is a village-like suburb. Now, we're lucky in that, and that's why we live here. That's one of the reasons that we live here. It's not the only reason. But if these people come out, and I'll tell you something else that the suburbs are full of, and I've said this in a previous one. The suburbs are full of tough old boys. Okay, not everybody out here, very, very, very few. And the idea that people who are well off inherited it is an entire fallacy. Very few people inherit it. Most of the people who do well made it on their own. Okay, and that there's a lot that goes into that. There is thinking. There is perseverance. There is strength. There is mental toughness. There is emotional toughness. You do not become successful by waiting for people to give you stuff. Okay, very, very simply, and to put the truth out there. So don't think that suburban people are just a bunch of wusses. They're not. We got plenty of former military out here. We've got plenty of former police and firefighters and just tough people. And that's not just the guys; it's the women too. Okay, who will not put up with junk, and that's what it's about. You do not, at least in this area. Now we're on the Kansas side of the Kansas City area. I can't speak for others, but I'm sure that there are thousands of other areas just like this. And when these people try to come out here, they are going to be met with resistance, and the kind of resistance that's going to shut them down. For those places that aren't like that, who they're going to be able to overrun the suburbs, well, hey, if you think you're in a place like that, you'd better get out. Okay? You had better get out. But around here, hey, I'll be honest, there's more guns around here than you see in the country. Seriously. And if you don't believe me, trust me, I know both. Okay. And there are people out here that can't wait for it to happen. Now, I'm not promoting that, but I'm telling you, there are people out here that just can't wait. They're just about drooling. They're frothing at the mouth for a chance to put a stop to this crap. Excuse me. I don't usually say those words on here. But they're frothing at the mouth for a chance to get their little shot in to stop this stuff. Now, if you live in the suburbs and you don't feel like you're totally prepared. So I want to go back to something that I said before I go on. Something that I said to on a previous one, and that is you folks out in the smaller towns and the country, you don't have to worry about these fools coming out there, unless it's some local, purple-haired person coming out and standing on the street corner out there. And there's plenty of those. I mean, it's a shame that half of our small towns now are full of meth. When we look for properties, I go and I meet the police, and I know some of the sheriffs, and I talk to them, and we have lunch in the cafes, and we talk to people, and we say, what's it like living around here? And it's disappointing to hear. It's just disappointing. Just had a waitress. We stopped by a small town Pizza Hut not too long ago, and just to kind of get the sense of the town, and the waitress was very nice. And I asked her, I says, what kind of a place is this to live? She says, nah. She says it used to be a nice place, but she says I wouldn't live here now if I didn't have to. And I forget why she had to. And I said, how come? She says, it's just drugs. It's just full of drugs. Well, you see, that's the problem that you can get into when you get. Well, I'm not even going to get into that, because that becomes a comparison, and that's not my purpose on this. But as I said, you all don't have to worry about these people coming out through the suburbs, because they're never going to get through the suburbs. Okay. Now, for you people in the suburbs who aren't as tuned up as you think you ought to be, but you're of the mindset that, hey, this is not going to happen in my area. It's not coming to my neighborhood. If it's coming here, it's not getting out without some bruises that'll make it not want to come back. If you're of that mindset, but you haven't prepared, this is for you. Okay, get prepared. Now, if you don't have the firearms and ammo you need, it's a little late. Do you have friends from whom you can borrow one? Now, here I'll say, check your local laws, check your state laws. Is it legal for you to borrow or house or store or something like that a firearm from someone maybe who's looking for a place to store them? Check it out. Just see kind of how that is. Stock up your ability to stay in your house, or at least not. You don't have to stay in your house, but you don't want to have to go to the store if it starts to come out here. Like I say, if it comes out here, it's not going to last long. But you may say, I'm going to run down to the store and get some such and such for dinner, and then you go down there, and some of these idiots have it blocked off before the resistance shows up and escorts them out. You don't want to have to go in that store. You don't want to have to fight your way through a crowd to get a can of beans or some spaghetti sauce. So stock up. Have a year's worth of food in your house. Make it so that you don't have to leave your house, if you don't want to, for a year. Okay? You need food and you need water. If you don't have a way to purify water in case there's a boil order or an interruption for whatever reason, whether it be natural or some idiot gets to the water plant, you want a way to purify your water at home. And for that, I suggest you get a Berkey filter. Go to berkeyfilters.com. I suggest to everybody that I talk to, one of the first things that I tell them in their preparedness journey is buy a Berkey filter. Now, you can check all the other ones out there if you would like, but I've checked all of them before I ever got my first one years ago, and Berkey is the best. Do what you want. We haven't drunk water or cooked with anything except what we've taken through our Berkey for years and years. And you don't want to drink what's in that city water. If you want something to scare yourself, go to your water supply company's website and look for the list of the stuff that's in the water. It'll make you want to puke, and you'll never want to drink it again. So get a Berkey, and then go out and buy yourself a couple of Sawyer minis that you can put in your car or your bag, or keep at home, or loan to somebody if they need it. Okay. So you want your food taken care of, you want your water taken care of, and if you don't know how to do that, way back when, one of my first ones, I think probably my third or fourth one, it was all about getting prepared, and it was about food. Okay. The next is security for your home. You need to have that thing lit up like Christmas. Okay. One of my businesses is security and landscape lighting. And as I go around, I explain to people that it's I light them up to be pretty, but with a security element involved. That's the first thing I take it from. I want to make their house be the one that every burglar and idiot wants to avoid. Okay, it's just like cockroaches. Criminals and idiots want to avoid the light. You turn on the light and they scurry. So you want your house lit up. Now, I'm just saying that I happen to own that company. I don't have any time for new business, so I'm not trying to sell my business. I'm sure there's plenty in your area that will be able to come out and do a nice job lighting your house up. Okay. I will answer this question. A lot of people say, well, I'm going to get those lights that have the electric on, that when somebody approaches my garage or something like that, then it will come on. And my response to that is simply, well, you can do that if you want to. But the thing is, that's happened once they've already approached your place up to, 30 feet, whatever you can set it for. What you want to do is keep those people from ever approaching your house. So landscape and security lighting, you want that thing lit up, and not only is it safe, but it looks nice. It looks really nice at night. Okay, why not make your house look nice while you're being safe? The next thing is do an inventory of your house. Now, what I mean by that, do a security inventory. This is another thing that I do for people. Take a look at your house. Where would people approach your house from, and how are you going to defend it? The firearms that are in your house, and I have a rule that people ask me, well, should I carry in my house? Why would you not carry in your house? Do you feel safe in your house? Well, I feel safe in my house, but okay, if I'm upstairs and I hear somebody kicking in my front door, and it's a home invasion, and those do happen, even in areas like this. They don't happen as much here as other places, but they can, and you prepare for what can happen. If I'm upstairs and my wife and kids are downstairs, and I happen to go upstairs for something, and all of a sudden somebody kicks in the door, and I've left my gun downstairs, do I want to be coming down the steps unarmed while there's 3 guys down there with guns pointed at my family and at me? No. I want to come down shooting. Okay. If I'm downstairs and we're enjoying a nice evening and watching a movie and eating popcorn, and my gun's upstairs and they kick in the door, do I want that? I have to run up the steps and say, hang on, let me go get my gun. No, you don't want to do that. Carry your gun inside. Why not? Get used to it. It's not that hard. You'll get used to it, and then you won't even think about it. Keep your gas full, your car full of gas. Okay. Park your vehicles inside and lock them up if you can. I know that a lot of people, I get to the point, hey, I have so much stuff stored in my garage that my vehicles are outside. Okay. So I'm suggesting something that I don't do, but it's still a good idea. If you park your vehicles inside, make sure that your garage doors are locked. Nobody can get into them. And go ahead and lock the doors of your car. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, that's just stupid. Well, okay. Is double safe bad, or is not safe enough good? Take your pick. The next thing is a dog. I have a dog that'll eat anybody that comes back here who's not with me, or my kids, or my wife. Okay. A dog is one of the best things you can have. They are not only an alarm, and I'm not big on small dogs. I don't like animals that don't have a use besides making noise. Okay, so a nice big shepherd, Rottweiler. Mine's a shepherd Rottweiler mix. I don't think you can do better than that. Whatever. There's a lot of dogs out there, but hunting dogs, your retrievers, your spaniels, your things like that, they are not going to protect you. No matter how much you think your dog is ferocious and he barks, he might wake you up if somebody's messing at the front door. But you want something that'll also fight for you, so I do suggest a nice, big, ferocious dog. There's a lot more we could get into. Maybe I will on another one, but that was my point. What's going to happen when this stuff comes to the suburbs? It's going to happen differently, I'm sure, in different suburbs. But when they come to suburbs like mine and that one out in Colorado Springs, they are going to be shut down. And this is what I've talked about before. When I teach active shooter response training, one of the I explain, and I have to teach it two different ways. When I teach to places that have their own active shooter protocols, I have to stay within the bounds of those protocols. Sometimes I don't like to, because I think I'm not able to give additional information that I would like to. But when I train people on my own, then I teach it a little bit differently. And that is, an active shooter goes into an environment that they consider to be target rich. That means there's a lot of people in there that they can shoot who aren't going to shoot back. And the one thing that invites an active shooter is a no gun sign on the door. Okay, you look at almost every active shooter situation, whether it's been a school, a church, a military installation, whatever, they are all gun restrictive areas. They go in there because they know they're not going to have pushback. It's the same with these idiots that are rioting. When they don't have pushback, they keep going. They come back, they do more there, and they push out. An active shooter situation usually ends at the first contact of resistance. Okay, it can be police. Usually, it's not. Very often, it's a citizen, an armed citizen. Many cases, not even an armed citizen. Could be an unarmed citizen who is simply willing to fight back, who wants to live out the day and thinks that if they don't fight back, they're not going to get home to see their family that night. And when that happens, the active shooter situation turns around. The active shooter is not there to fight. He's there to destroy. He's there to kill. And when he's met with resistance, very, very often, he takes himself out. Okay, if you go back and read those things, the active shooter was found with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Okay, well, a lot of people like to say, "Oh, that's just what the police said." They killed him and then said he killed himself. No, it's not. He killed himself because now he's up against resistance. He had this fantasy. He was going to go in there and be the big guy. He was going to be on the news. His name was going to be out there, known forever like these other idiots before him. And he was going to be known, and for his moment of glory, the end of his life was going to be forever enshrined in his acts of foolishness. And when he starts being resisted, bang, because they don't have the personalities to keep up with resistance. It's the same with these idiots down here. You resist them, they're going to stop. Okay, so that's what I say. And when we teach active shooter, they give the three choices of run, hide, or fight. And they say the first is you run. The second, if you can't run, you hide. The third is if you can't run and hide, you got to fight. Well, okay. Some people go along with that protocol. I disagree with that because, you know what? Active shooters don't stop when you run, and they don't stop when you hide. They stop when you fight. And it's the same with these people. They won't stop when you run. They won't stop when you hide. And they will stop when you resist. So I'm going to conclude that here. I probably made this go longer than I meant to, but I think there are a lot of misconceptions about these riots and these demonstrations and why they keep going and what it's going to take to stop them. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about how soft the suburbs are. Don't believe it for a minute. They're full of people who are just looking for a chance to express their displeasure at this kind of behavior. And I think there's misconceptions on what individuals can do and how they can prepare themselves for this. So if you live in the suburbs, prep up. Prep up. If you want to move to the country, that's great. The country is a beautiful place if that's for you. But if it's not for you, make your home in the suburbs as livable and as nice as you've always wanted to be, and fight to maintain that. Fight to retain that. Resist everyone, be it these idiots or politicians or whatever, who are working to change it for the worse. So that's my message for today. Yeah. Be right. Push back. Fight back. That's what stops these people. It is hot out here today, so I'm going to go do something else because I see that I'm sweating all over the place. And you all have a good day, and remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And if we don't prepare, living well is not going to come because some living well fairy came along and sprinkled some dust on us. Okay, that's our responsibility. So whatever you can tighten up on, now is definitely the time to either start or keep on going. And I think we're in for tough times, especially this fall and as it leads up to the elections and even beyond then, depend on what the results of those elections are. So make yourself more self-sufficient than you are now. Toughen up, train, see what you need to do is if things go south, and I will see you on the next one. Y'all have a good day. Bye-bye.